Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are listening today. Thank you so much for hopping on to my live stream. I have such a badass lady boss on today, Jen Kim. We are going to talk about what does it take to really be seen, be heard, and get paid, because all of us want to get paid for that. That's what we're going to talk about. Say hello, let us know where you're in from. And Jen, I would love for you to kick us off with talking a little bit about your story and how you created the Master Brand Institute.
Oh my gosh. First of all, thanks, Rachel. I'm so thrilled to be here with you and all of you. Thanks for inviting me to chat this morning. So, I like to say that my story is a long, winding yarn and that I am not a spring chicken. I am a seasoned chicken. I've been doing this for 24 plus years. I'm still like hanging on to 24 before 25 because, just because. But I started my career I went to school in Silicon Valley. I'm originally from Hawaii. And I knew that I wanted to work in high tech out of high school. I didn't even know why, but at the time, it was kind of the new thing. So that's how old I am. That's what I like to say. I was in the first, I call it 1.0 of Silicon Valley growth. So that's when eBay was born, Netscape. Oh my God, I'm so aging myself. When Yahoo was the top search engine, that type of thing. And I knew I wanted to be in that world because I felt as a young professional, I was going to at least be successful to some degree in it. And I pursued a degree in marketing, and my first job was at Ogilvy, which is the top ad agency in the world and manages some of the biggest campaigns that you've ever seen on any media channel, including TV, radio, and obviously online. And I started my career out working on accounts like Coca-Cola and Nestle, a lot of food accounts, not necessarily high tech. But on the messaging side of it, I realized that I just became obsessed with how messaging and building a brand basically influences everyone, all of us. I mean, we are all influenced by a brand's message and its reputation. And so, very early in my career, I knew that I wanted to be that part. That's what I wanted to pursue. And so, fast forward for about 12 years, I rose up the ranks. I moved from like consumer goods because I knew I wanted to go to high tech, left the agency and went to work for companies like Oracle, a few unicorn startups at the time. In fact, one of them was called Webvan, which, if again any of you OGs are listening, Webvan was the predecessor to DoorDash. It was an idea before its time, and we all thought, oh my God, this thing is going to rock, like delivering food from different restaurants to your house. And we raised like millions of dollars and it utterly failed. And this was in, guys, again, I'm going to age myself. This was in 1999, 2000. So,
Wow.
What I'm really excited about is, as a futurist now, as a brand futurist, I'm really good at predicting something that's going to happen that's going to be big. And at the time, that's an example of something that I knew the market needed. It just wasn't fully ready yet for um, its due, if you will. And so that also made me realize that if you want to be seen, heard, and paid, if you will, whether you are an entrepreneur or you're trying to build the next unicorn startup, or you're even an executive working in a marketing or strategy department, trying to drive forward new products, innovations, and stuff, version 1.0 is not version 5.0. And so you have to know that if your idea has a market in the future, keep iterating it and stay focused. And then the big payoff is on the other side. Because I like to say that I like to focus on the right hard things, and then on the other side of it, flow happens. So back to your question, I spent 12 years of that. My last job was VP of business to business markets at Verizon West, where I also got a chance to launch what is now the predecessor to Netflix and streaming, and called Internet Protocol TV. And after that big
Very
project, which,
sexy.
how was that?
Very sexy internet.
Yes, so sexy, right? And even back then, it was not everybody like invested in cable to get their
Yeah.
shows on TV, or and IPTV, which was now you could access anything from anywhere, was a new idea, just like Webvan was to DoorDash. And I implemented that project successfully in, gosh, it's been now 14 years. And I realized after that project, when I got passed up for a promotion, um, that I had been promised, because I took the crappiest project in the world on, the hardest, the most cross-functional, the most where I had to like manage everything from the C-suite to literally the field workers who were laying
Yeah.
fiber to the
Yeah.
prem, unions, all the things, that I realized that I didn't have any control over my future. I was always the person pegged to take on the hardest projects because I could smell the money in the future and I was really good at the team stuff. And even when I worked the hardest I ever had, I realized I'm not going to ever get what I want, or at least fast enough. And so
Mm,
I realized that I had to design my own future, and I started my own company. And that's how Master Brand Institute was born. So
wow.
there's more there, but that's the summary.
Oh, there's so much there. Oh my gosh. Well, first, I want to say Josh is watching and he wants to say hello. And also, he feels the feeling old because he knows all the companies that you're saying.
Right. Cool. Thanks, Josh. I'm so glad I'm seen. This is awesome.
And I want to say hi to Ashwin and whoever is watching, do say hello. I think what some of the things that really stand out to me that you mentioned, doing the right hard thing and smelling the money. That's kind of really interesting. Jen, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about branding, right? And how really that is what I say is like the DNA. It is the center of the opportunity and where the money is and all of that. It sort of starts there, although most people forget that. Can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about your principles, how you think about branding, the kinds of branding you can do? Just kind of give a little lay of the land for people listening.
So my favorite topic, obviously, and I know, and I believe that most people think of brand as such an kind of like this amorphous thing. And it is actually an amorphous thing. I think that how I define brand is it's actually the main character in your business. It is an actual organism of your business that you have to keep alive and caretake for, and make sure that the reputation, which really is also your brand, what is the reputation of what you build, what you offer, stays relevant and sustainable. And that includes the founder, who typically is the personal brand behind the company brand. So there are actually three types of brands. There's the company brand, the offer brand, and the personal brand. And in today's world, all three are critical. And also, it's not that new of an idea. I think that, in the online age, or the highly digital, hyper responsive age that we're living in right now, that we think that personal brand is more important than it's ever been. It's actually always been important. It's just that social media platforms have made it awesome for creators and individual personal brands to, depending on the type of business they want to create. Like if they want to build a freedom-based business, not too many like big widgets, big software, et cetera, they can do that. And then those of us that want to build like the next big idea that turns into a company, can do that as well. So personal brand is typically the founder, the visionary, right? Their story, all the things around that, and why they wanted to bring a solution to the world, which is the offer brand. So the offer brand is the solution that's being offered, and for people to decide to use their wallet share. And then the company is the entity or the business that runs it. And when we talk about smelling the money and making money, it's the company and the offer that makes you money. And that's the business side of the brand. And then the reputation, the way people see you, the vibe that you have is the offer and the personal brand. So the offer is the hinge. The offer brand is the hinge. It's the product,
Yep.
or the service, and it's the quality, the excellence, the living up to its values and its promise that matters. And so those are the three types of brands. And so when you're building your brand, you want to be thinking about all three of those, because even if the brand is just you, meaning you're a blogger, you're an influencer, that type of thing, you're the offer brand too, and you're the company brand. So now you're all three. So it's
Yeah.
all together. But if you're in tech or product or whatever, you're actually developing three separately but integrated. So
That is such a clear way of describing it. Thank you for that. And I love what you're talking about when it's the solopreneur or consultant and stuff like that. People, a common question that I've seen a lot, Jen, is like, do I focus on my company brand or my personal brand? I am the brand. What is your thought to those listening if they are that person, or what that? And then what if they're inside of a company?
mhm.
So they're the employee. How do you think about the brand?
Yeah. So I think there's obviously like strategy you have to be thinking of, but if I were to summarize the two things you want to think about the most is identity and reputation. So, and that means reputation of the company, reputation of the offer, reputation of the person, and then identity of the company, identity of the offer, identity of the person. These are the two things that are the heartbeat of building a brand. And so if you're on the spectrum of just starting out as a freelance or a consultant advisor, which was, by the way, when I left the corporate world,
Yeah.
when I left the corporate world and jumped into entrepreneurship, I was just that. I was a consultant solo,
Yeah.
trying to get at least two projects, hoping to make maybe like 75K a year with these two projects. I was very focused on project by project basis, and then that grew into a bigger company over the past 10 years. um, because I didn't want to do it alone. But the point is, what I focused on first was I am the product. I have this expertise and experience, and I want to sell that specific offer and use my reputation as the reason why people would see me, which is the identity, as the best person to choose for that specific project. And I think when we are building our brands, any of the three, which one do you focus on the most? I would say your offer and your personal brand, because your offer is the thing that you want to be known for. You want people to go, oh, she is the bomb.com at that. She is the absolute best, or she is a great fit for the way that your company rolls or the values that your company has. And so your personal brand is you being able to clearly articulate both what I call your expertise and your experience, which are two different things. Expertise is your work, the things you've done in your work, the things that you've accomplished, perhaps even your degrees, certifications, people that you worked with, companies that you've worked with. Your experience is the scenarios that you've worked in. Perhaps when I mentioned I worked on these IPTV projects and I worked on cross-functional teams, and I had to deal with a lot of different personalities and agendas and inside politics. When I can tell that story in the scenario, that's my experience. They see the depth and the breadth of what I can bring to the offer and the solution they're looking for. So it's all about messaging your identity and your reputation.
100%. I hope, Ashwin, I think that was a really clear answer to that around, exactly what we were just talking about. And I feel like, Jen, because I still work with a lot of the master's students and MBA students at UT over here, Austin. And so they're students looking for jobs, or they are the working professionals, right? I get a lot of job seekers and whatnot. And I feel like that audience still can think like what you just said as a solopreneur, right? Like still thinking about, I'm inside of a company. What am I offering? Right? What is my reputation? What's my identity? Where do I want to go? But so many people don't really think about it like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Then they
I
get
mean,
kind of like stuck in the cycle of corporate. And I'm like, because you're not really thinking of yourself as a brand.
and flip side, I think that if you have corporate experience or you're starting your career in corporate, that was my story, that a lot of people struggle becoming entrepreneurs too. So like it's the flip side, because they get stuck in this way of being. And so here's my advice for you. First of all, if you want to be the go-to person, you want to build a brand internally to a company that says, she is it. Like she's the one I want on my team. She's the one that I see in the succession planning someday. She's the person that could lead this department at some point. If that's your ambition, which I think if you're building a brand, or you want to be known as like the best computer programmer or whatever in the company. This goes back to what Rachel was saying is one of my taglines, which is focus on the right hard things. First of all, see yourself as in what I call an intrapreneur. May have all heard that term, but how I define intrapreneur is they are the most needed and most revered resource in all of work. Let's put it that way. And what I mean by that is somebody who thinks innovatively like an entrepreneur, but is not, they're trying to strategize and move the company forward. They're not just sitting back waiting for life to happen to them. Because in the entrepreneur world, you can't do that either. I say if you're an entrepreneur, you're the bravest person I know, because it's the hardest job to have. And it is a job. That's the other part of it. So whether you choose to be an entrepreneur and have that as your career, or you become an entrepreneur and that's your career, because they're both career choices, you need to have a reputation inside of the company you work for, and frankly outside of the company, because we know that the biggest way to make more money and to get a bigger title is to move companies, right?
Yeah.
So you want your reputation to be that recruiters are hunting you, that other companies are going, wow, that person is a star. I heard what the initiative that they led over here. And that's a brand thing. That's what people don't realize. Like, your brand is this identity of being a badass. And badass doesn't mean even confident, loud, extroverted. I'm actually not that. And yet I was always given the biggest projects because I had the results. I like results because it would get me my bonus faster. I could create more free time. I'd get the best teams assigned to my projects because I would focus on that as my brand, instead of like, oh, I'm overwhelmed with all this politics or all this bullshit that's bothering me. I would like go, I learned really early in my career, the best way to get what you want is to actually volunteer for the hard stuff, because nobody wants to do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
They want to do, and the more that you can show that you could figure stuff out, that you're willing to do something that's hard, that you want to be mentored by the person you see is doing the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Your identity, your personal brand inside of a company's star will rise. It's like the fastest way to get, or go play golf with your boss every day. That's another way to do it, but everybody's going to think you're a schmuck. Everybody's going to think, oh, that person got a raise because they're friends with our boss. And that's fine if you want to play that game, but everybody hates you secretly. Okay. So why not be the person who's the star and then creates the offer brands? Like when I was at Verizon, for example, I got to bring streaming to the world. That was something we felt really proud of. Like, this is a new thing that we get to be behind, and I don't have to spend my money, because it took millions upon millions of dollars to bring that to the world. I didn't have that money. So if you want to be part of something bigger, entrepreneurship and building your brand over there is actually a great way to go. And you'll get the titles and you'll get the bonuses. And yeah, you have to put up with some of the crap, but that's what corporate's like. Guess what? Entrepreneurship's not as romantic and sexy over here. Still got to deal with the same stuff. So
yeah,
pick your hard, choose your hard, right?
That is so true, Jen. So many gems. I want to say hello to Blessing. People just kind of saying, you know, as a consultant that is considered the go-to person, this topic is hitting home. You know, it's making me rethink how I approach my what's next. So amazing, Jen. And Ashwin saying 20 years ago was a badass, suggested improvements to processes and stuff, and was fired. And that does happen, Jen, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's when you know that that company might not be aligned with the kind of person you be.
That, and Steve Jobs got fired from his own job. You know, I mean, that's the thing, right? Because he was too radical for the moment. But he knew that his ideas, and I'm not talking about his personality and his leadership style. Okay, I'm talking about his willingness to play big and not go quietly into the night. Okay, to talk about what's not working. And so you're absolutely going to be at risk. And that's the other thing. People think working in the corporate world or being intrapreneur is not as risky as being an entrepreneur. Actually, it can be very risky. And it's those that take risks and their personal brand is about risks inside the company that actually get the spoils, whether you believe it or not. Even if you're kicked out, let's say, or you're passed over, which happened to me, the cool thing is you have everything it takes to actually become an independent consultant, because we all know, right? Consultants get paid and they get listened to more than employees do. And that's what I figured out. I was like, wait a minute, here I am. And I made a lot of money because I was a VP. So I was like making $400,000. I had a bonus, potential at a corner office with a disco ball in it. I had a parking spot that said Jen Mother Lovin' Chem on it. The Mother Lovin' part wasn't there, but I imagined it every time I drove into the office building. And I had all these perks and these trophies. But I realized, like, wait a minute, I didn't have the respect. I thought I did. Because if I did, I would have obviously got that promotion. Guess who got the promotion? My friend in the consumer department who played golf with my boss every weekend. And I was like, wait, this doesn't feel equitable or fair. And at the same time, what am I going to do for myself? I was like, consultants always get brought in, including me hiring them. And we listen to them. They get respected. They're listened to. They get paid really well. Oh, what if I just did that next? And instead of trying to overcomplicate your next step into entrepreneurship, a lot of people do that too, where they like do something that they shouldn't be doing. They have no experience or expertise. Remember your brand identity, but they want to do something new. Go be a consultant and get paid for a while. And while you're doing that, go get relationships with other people who have brand identities that can support what you don't have to create the next unicorn if that's what you want to do. But I think people take the wrong next step.
Yeah.
Because they think that it's too I don't want to do what I was doing before. I'm like, well, then you want to be broke, which is like another incentive, I guess, but not me. I had 2 kids to feed, so I couldn't make that choice.
This is why I love Jen. Like there's a practicality about it, right? Like that's
Yeah.
just real. And I think we need to have those conversations. I just want to also say hello to Donovan. Loving this conversation. Bez, these are 2 of our community, our family members, some of our life training sort of amazing members. And Jen, I'd love to, since we have about 10 minutes or so left, talk about two more things. One, just what you're doing at the Master Brand Institute, sort of the framework and process and what you are helping either one-on-one clients with. So just kind of give a little bit of lay of the land there. And then I do want to talk about, hi, Donovan. I do want to talk about what you're doing as, the Forbes go-to small business sort of futurist trends woman happening today. So let's start with what you're up to and how you're supporting people.
Okay. So now, because I've been in the biz for 20 plus years, and whether it was in the corporate world or in small business, the 3 things that were always coming up that we noticed from a data perspective, because you can build a brand, there even visual, obviously logos, things like that are part of branding, right? But in terms of like the root cause of either success or failure when it comes to the 3 brands that I talked about were 3 things: messaging, team, and sales. Sales obviously is the part where you get paid, right? And actually you'll get paid more as a company, get better clients if your messaging is tight. And that as a visionizer, I don't call you visionaries, I call you visionizers, because you're actually doing things that you're not finding the right people to accentuate, complement, and replace the things you suck at. And it sounds, when I talk about brand and team, they don't see those things as being together. But if you think of any great brand, of course you see the person who is the founder as the sexy lead in the story. But that sexy lead could not have gotten to the place that they are without people behind them. And so they are the unsung yet super sexy heroes of the story. And when I've been working with teams who are bringing products to market, who are launching new ideas, et cetera, the way that they got there faster was being a better leader to people. And those people being bought into the values of the mission. And so, interestingly, our company really focuses on how can you build a team that actually gets you seen, heard, and paid faster instead of you just trying to do it yourself. And I totally straight up rebuke any of this, like just delegate everything, all that. That's such BS on the internet streets. It's some of the most dangerous advice out there. You have to be strategic in what you need. So it's team, messaging, and sales is my point. And then when you get that dialed in, and you get it dialed in as you do it, it's not like here we got to get this done and then 5 months later I'm done. It's an ongoing way of being as a company. Then your brand becomes something known for whatever your values are, however your team performs, whatever your product has quality around, and then you'll have a shit ton of sales. Pardon my language. Okay, so it's when people talk about brand, I find they don't talk about these things specifically.
Yeah.
And this is actually the heartbeat of great brands: team, messaging, sales. So at our company, what we do is we focus on those three things. We have a framework for messaging called the unique message model. And then for team, we have something called what we call the unicorn team model. And it's comprised of the three areas that you really need to focus on to build a great team. And then for the sales side, it's all about how do you activate your brand in the marketplace? What are the right channels, mechanisms to do that, and focus hard and go deep on those instead of be everywhere to everyone. So that's what we do at the Master Brand Institute. We work with both entrepreneurs, depending on the level that you're at. We have the program for that. And in our one-on-one work, we work with founders who want to sustainably scale their brand to the next level and focus themselves on actually being more founders, looking for the next thing, them becoming the own futurist of their own company. So that's where I get involved a lot now, and it's my favorite thing to do in
I
today's
love
times.
Oh,
Yeah,
I mean, I really hope we'll drop links and stuff, but everyone really can check this stuff out. I know I'm intrigued. I'm interested because the one thing, Jen, and I say this all the time, is it's very difficult to work on your own brand and offer a messaging alone. Like when you're inside the jar, it's so hard to read that label, right, Jen? It's
absolutely.
nearly impossible. And even
Hmm.
though I'm so good at branding, it's hard for me to do that with standout. Like hard for me to take a look, which is why I was like, Jen, I need your help because it's just hard and so helpful that you have this sort of structure in place for people, especially people that are consultants, they can't pay the big bucks for these big agencies to do it. It's absolutely critical. So I really think people need to check this out.
Oh, I think I'm so glad you said that, because even me, when I'm working on the next iteration of my personal brand and how I want to be seen in this next season, I have to get help from other people too. Because you can be a brand strategist and still you're going to miss things because you're also mono focused on the things that got you here. And the
Right.
things that got you here, everybody's heard the term, what's got you here is not going to get you to the
Really
next place.
there.
And so you
Yeah.
want to look for people or structures or both that align with the way that you think so that you can be stretched forward instead of, you know, just whatever the next step is.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. And I'll be dropping the links for her information. Of course, on her LinkedIn profile is the website and whatnot, but we'll drop some links. Last piece, Jen, although I could ask you a bajillion more questions, is this really cool small business sort of trends event that you have going on later today and then ongoing. And I love this idea that you know what you think are the trends. And so talk a little bit about that, maybe a little sneak peek of what you're thinking, because fun,
Absolutely.
juicy stuff. And hey, Stan,
Yeah.
thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much. Okay.
Yeah. So every year, Forbes asks me to write the top 10 things that I think for the next fiscal or business year that small business specifically should be looking at. And I did mine a bit early this year, and partly because of all this talk around recessions and all the things. And so I just released my top 10 brand predictions. They haven't been published in Forbes yet. I only told my community, but we are doing a post mortem type of thing where I'm sharing the top 10 small business brand predictions. And you can go to themessengerlive.com/encore and you'll get the recording, or you can come live to my conversation. I'm having it today, next week, and the week after at the time of this recording with Rachel and me. And just to give you a little sneak peek, I'll give you one to take away, whether if you can come or not. And that is that when you're building a company, even if it's a company of one, all of us need to have the basic metrics in place to be measuring, even if we're not math people. We need to know what our revenue is, what our expenses, that's our P&L, right? From a marketing perspective, we need to know how many leads that we're getting, at least on a weekly or monthly basis. We need to know how many of those leads convert into conversations and how many of those conversations convert into sales. Those are your basic metrics, right? That you need to know that you're actually operating a cash flow positive company. And one of the small business trends that I think has been here, but nobody has named it, in my opinion, that I've seen is that there's a new metric, especially with the quiet quitting revolution, with the 2 million women that exited the workforce during COVID. that matters just as much as P&L, revenue, expense, and the like. And that is the success metric of well-being and defining what well-being looks like personally for the founder, the personal brand. So, for example, when I say well-being, I'm not just talking about health, although absolutely, because if we aren't physically able to come to the rigor of the job or the career that we have, that's a difficult way to grow a company. So that's the obvious one. But the others are like, what is the financial well-being of you? Meaning, sure, your company has to have financial well-being, but what's your personal number that you need to be making? And is that number based on something you actually need, or is it something that society is telling you that you need? I think people are now, not I think, I know that people are going, what's my number that I need?
Yeah.
So financial well-being, mental well-being, spiritual well-being, and physical well-being are four additional KPIs that are becoming now necessary for people to either stay in a corporate entrepreneurial job or for entrepreneurs to decide whether or not they want to pursue the same path that they had. And so that's just one of the things that we talk about in the top 10. So that's one of the 10 that I talk about in my
Wow.
my preview.
That's amazing. I mean, it is such a big topic, Jen. I'm so glad that you actually put that on your trends because I wouldn't say typically I would expect that on a trend. So not in any time pre-COVID. Are you kidding me? It's like
Right.
we wouldn't talk about mental health and well-being. Like, are you
Yes.
kidding? You know, it's just I think it's really cool that we've had this spiritual awakening across the globe and that can be a real trend for us to how do we make, Josh wrote his book, balance is bullshit, right? This whole I hate my least favorite question, Jen. How do you have work-life balance? I'm like, I hate that question.
There's no such thing,
No such
in my
thing.
opinion. Yeah,
Like
it's all
this is
about
what you're
harmony.
talking about.
Yes, it's
Well-being.
mindful trade-offs. It's prioritizing the asset, which is you. Okay, we are the biggest asset, and even for those of us that are like, I don't want to be in the front. I just want to scale my offer, or I want to. Sure, but even if you're not the face and you want the offer to be the lead, you still physically have to and mentally and spiritually be able to lead the company, to be able to lead other people. And so this is true of whether or not you want to also recruit great people. People are going to expect the
Yeah.
employees or the entrepreneurs of the future will expect companies to have well-being as one of the metrics. And so if you want to recruit great people or recruit great partners, you have to be thinking about that as well. So that's partly why it's so important too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm really excited for that. I know a lot of people are going to want to check that out, Jen. I will get the links and drop them, everybody. And, Manny and Stan. Oh, please tell me again the website to get the info. Stan, I promise I'll go in the chat. I will drop it. He also had another question, Jen. So maybe you, the team, can kind of make sure we're answering these amazing questions. Thank you so much for being here. You are incredible, so much knowledge. I'm really, really honored to have you on today. And I appreciate everybody that's checking this out. Thank you. Please reach out to Jen and have a beautiful rest of your weekend. And I'll see you soon.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Thanks, everyone.